just a little teaser there for the Sean Hannity Show, which is every afternoon during the week, just after the powerful newscast of CBS at 3, just after CBS, the great one in Washington, with his tremendous connections and his tremendous insights, with good guests, people who are in the know, who are very current. Some are participants in the great flaps, you could say, that are taking place in Washington. But this is David Tulis, and we have a lococentric analysis, a nougat-centric perspective, so insular, right? So you could say so narrow that we never get to Washington. We barely get to Nashville. And there's a reason for that, and that is that I'm trying to convince you that what matters here really is much more important than what they decide, the good people decide in Nashville and in Washington. We may give a slight mention to Bob Corker stepping down, and more recently, Lamar Alexander saying he won't run for re-election with his owlish glasses. In 2 years, though, he's going to hold the fort down, if you will, for the Republicans for that time. We never get to talking about whether he's good or bad. In a way, it almost doesn't matter whether they're left-wing progressive status or right-wing progressive status. They seem to be alike with the other party, with some slight differences in rhetoric. But since we, in my analysis, live under an occupation by a duopoly, a political duopoly, a cartel, if you will, of the political classes, it almost doesn't matter how bad it looks for Trump or how great it looks for Trump. The news yesterday, very, very good, that he's ordering all of the federal troops, the American federal troops, out of Syria, where they had no business to begin with, and no lawful authority to be there. And he, on a whim, perhaps, it seems, to the surprise of all the apparatchiks in the Beltway, is saying, all right, we're out. So I think that's, I like that about him, that he's keeping the good people off balance. He makes decisions which are fundamentally right. And in fact, when he had run for election, he indicated that he was a non-interventionist, or that he is a non-interventionist, and that we have no business in these places. And the whisper in the newscast yesterday was he might even propose that the feds get out of Afghanistan. Well, that would be a tremendous thing as well. 17-year war and thousands of maimings. You've seen the pictures from Wounded Warrior Project and scamsters like that on TV. The men walking about with one leg and a kind of a metal robot attachment starting under one knee. We've seen all that, and it's all from Afghanistan. A conflict in the trillions of dollars, some of which you've had to pay for through your taxes. If you're a tax filer, if you're a taxpayer, well, you've paid for that war to maintain itself. And then, of course, there's the tremendous borrowing on the credit markets that the federal government binges on every couple of weeks in the bond markets or the treasury markets, borrowing, so much so that the repayment schedules are giving hardly any room at all for the important social efforts of HUD and SS and other agencies, EPA. They're all in their discretionary budgets. They're all given less and less wiggle room, less discretion on how to serve the American people, because the federal debt is getting to be so large. So in a way, it doesn't matter what Alexander is doing or saying or what he's voting or how virtuous Bob Corker's program is against human trafficking. And the reason it's not a big deal is because we have human trafficking right here in Chattanooga. And it is from several directions. And guess what? Guess what? It's not from private parties. You have a few whoremongers who enslave Hispanic girls, bring girls over from Bosnia, and traffic them on the hotel corridors, say between Chattanooga and Nashville. Here in East Ridge, there may be some scurrilous private soul with a private business of a captive woman or two, maybe some girls from the Far East brought from Hong Kong slum. And here they are. They don't know English too well, and they're enslaved by a private party uh, and gaining the revenue from their sexual acts. And there are people like that. There's no doubt there are private criminals. But the thing that gets my attention, and it just strikes me every day, is how the criminality has shifted, right? It used to be a private enterprise endeavor to be a criminal. But in some respects, now let me be respectful here. Let me be respectful. The problem of violation of law, let's put it that way. It's not criminality. Let's term it diplomatically. The violation of law is something that is a public sector monopoly. It's becoming to be somewhat, I wouldn't say it's a monopoly because there are still private criminals. There are drug lords. There are people who traffic in vice. There are people who make millions on false appraisals on their houses so that they can get mortgage money, and they're not telling the truth about the valuations, and they're getting appraisers to go along with the game. These kinds of things are happening again, of course, in the booming bubble of real estate. But there are these private criminals. But the ones to be concerned about, the ones I think that we should look at more intensely, and have maybe if there's moral outrage, maybe it should be directed against that violation of law by government people, by people who are who take oaths to uphold the Constitution, who take oaths to obey all lawful laws. Those are the ones that I'm concerned about. Now, there's a developing hostage crisis that I would like to report on, and I'm putting it this way because I'm going to let myself go right now and be a little bit alarmist, and that is a question. There's a hostage crisis on a question, and the hostage. Now, okay, I'm overstating it. I know I'm going a little bit overboard here, but it is a developing crisis at the city attorney's office in Chattanooga, across from City Hall, on which, of course, Mayor Burke on the third floor presides over the government of the corporation. In the annex across the street, there is the Internal Affairs Division of the police department, isolated from the police run-of-the-mill coffee pot chatter. These are officers who are, I think, generally hated by cops, but they have a job, and that is to internally investigate violations of policy and law, et cetera, et cetera. In that building, there's also the city attorney's office. Phil Noblet is a very good man in that office. Now, there was a meeting a couple of Fridays ago that you can read about only at medium.com. That's medium.com, where I, David Tulis, your host here, right, and also the exclusive domain here in Chattanooga called Nooganomics. That's my chief sponsor, Nooganomics.com. It's a 6-year-old website. It is a not-for-profit website, but let me say it's very profitable to you, my listener. But you don't have to go there unless you really want to pursue my analysis in detail. But here on the David Tulis Show, we do have much of what appears there, though there's much more useful information about liberation of yourself, how to liberate yourself from the good people. Particularly, my racial reparations project has been getting a lot of my attention. And that is working to free Black people from a Southern servitude, a Southern slavery servitude from the 1810s and the 1820s and 30s and 40s and 50s. Ostensibly ended in 1865 by the war to prevent Southern independence, but still. It's still going on. And so that project is detailed there at Nooganomics.com. Now, there's a meeting described between a very gracious Phil Noblet, who is, again, the city attorney, and Keith Reisman, who is a deputy city attorney, and city employees. They're employed. And there was a meeting over what I am alleging and have alleged in public. That would be to say here, on this most important press platform in Chattanooga, that's to say Nooga Radio, the Jeff Stiles station, right? And the CBS Sean Hannity station. And it has also been alleged before City Council by what's called administrative notice. Now, I gave this notice because I'm just a bore, okay? I ask dumb questions, and I'm a bore because I read laws and I read court cases in the bathroom, okay? I have like I'm just looking into a book by Edwin Vieira in the bathroom, the guest bathroom on the main floor of my house, next to my in that hallway in my house. There's on the left. There are doors, bedroom doors, and then above there are all kinds of books, and then my American Jurisprudence set, which is a set of about 140 volumes, each one about 3 inches thick, hardbound, is on the right. So in that bathroom, I dip into American Amjur, as they call it sometimes, and other times I bring a book in on legal issues. So I'm reading a book now about how to overturn the federal imperial judiciary from Edwin Vieira, who's a Virginia constitutional attorney. So in that room, I'm reading law, and so that's my background. I'm the man who asks the dumb questions and challenges in my report, challenges the status quo. And again, my notice project is simply asking the dumb questions. And the dumb question that came up in the meeting with the city attorney was the police enforcement of the traffic and transportation law against the citizenry of the city and everybody else who passes through. We have thousands of visitors a day who are here by car and truck. And apparently, according to the city, they cannot be there by freedom and liberty. They cannot. They have to be there subject to the state through Title 55. And the police department is going to make sure that everybody is there as a state subject. No person can be here as a matter of liberty and freedom, exercising a right or exercising a leisure or pursuing, as the law says, a private pleasure. You cannot be here for pleasure. You can only be here commercially, and that's how the city police department enforces that part of the Tennessee Code. And in my analysis, this is illegal, and it has to stop. And so, since it has to stop, and since you can't ask them to stop, you can't just write an email to the city attorney and say, "Could you please stop transportation enforcement against private people?" He would just laugh at you. So there has to be a legal mechanism. And in my estimation, that's called notice. It's called notice. And so there's a question following that meeting that you can read about at Nuganomics.com. You can read about it at Medium. I didn't make any record of the meeting, except afterwards I wrote my essay. It was a non-recorded meeting. It was a private meeting, but of course I'm never private. Everything I do is public. No one talks to me off the record. It's always on the record with me. So this report describes what happened in the meeting and the arguments on both sides. And so I had a follow-up question, and the question is, why didn't the Tennessee General Assembly apply Title 55 to private people traveling in their own conveyances on private business, not for profit and not for private gain? And if you say it did apply it to them, when? That's the question. And that question, I'm afraid, is being held hostage by the city attorney's office. That means to say the question will not be allowed to return to me full and ample with an explanation. There will not be an explanation. So from early reports now of this encounter, we are in the second day of what I fear may be. Now, I know I'm maybe ahead of myself here. It may be a potential hostage situation where the question will not be allowed to be freed. And I think the first sign is that there's the door where the question is locked, and it's locked from the outside, which means that he can't get out. He wiggles the handle, clacks on the knob, and it's not opening. So he's looking now out the window and tapping. He's tapping on the door, wondering, okay, well, all right, what's happening here? So that is something that's happening. This is a brewing story. This is, and I'm giving you a heads up on the story. It's an early advance on the story. Is it a hostage situation, or will there be an answer to this question? Now, I'm going to speculate about the answer, and I'm thinking I may have to send in reinforcements, and that would be 7 questions that follow the question I'm asking about how is it that the state can apply a commercial statute to people who are not involved in commerce. How does that work? And when did that happen? Of course, the answer is that it never did. It never did. The law has never been applied to private people legally, though it is applied to private people by policy and practice. So we have a conflict in our government between policy and practice, which is illegal and unconstitutional, and the actual statute and your rights. So I'm here defending your rights. David Tulis, I'm looking out for you, my listener. And, I would love you to change the subject, because I get, we are a hostage situation potentially, but there has not been the victim has not been bound, he's not been gagged, he's not been handcuffed, anything like that. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm fearing the worst. I'm concerned that the door is locked and that he's not allowed to come out. So this is something that's brewing, and I will keep you apprised. This is day two. With the question has gone in. My diplomat, right? My representative, my emissary, your emissary, and will he come out? Will he come out with his liberty, which is to say the answer to the question? What will that be? Now, we're going to talk today about these kinds of things, and I'm afraid this if you don't care about moral questions, if you don't care about questions of right and wrong, well, then you're not going to care about lawyers and what lawyers do and how lawyers have badly injured you, my listener, by getting its members, its club members, right? They're all members of the bar, the Tennessee bar, the county bar, getting them elected to representative bodies like the Congress, right? Chuck Fleischman is a lawyer, and Andy Burke is a lawyer, right? They're all lawyers. About 40% of your representatives are attorneys. So this is a grievous problem because attorneys have brought us into the state of captivity and into the state of fear and terror. It is thanks to them. They are so concerned about risk, right? So let's reduce all risk in life by having the government, the state, intervene at every point to reduce risk and have everyone on equal footing, everyone on equal standard, and everyone effectively belongs to us and reports to us, and of course pays us and minds what we have to say and minds our officers when they come knocking or come flashing the blues at them. This is brought about by lawyers. And who are the judges in our state? Well, they're all attorneys. Every single one of them is a practicing attorney who has made vows before God to uphold the Constitution, but they're not doing that. And they have stolen from you repeatedly your rights, making reform impossible. I'd say there's not, apart from one project, a single project, well, maybe two, one and a half. My project is half a project. Okay, there is 1.5 projects that might have fruit. The other one we'll hear about today. David Tulis here, 800-8949, 800-8949. Look, if you want to call me about anything, do feel free to do so. I have some very fine words about David Roddy, Chief of Police, and I'm thinking I haven't emphasized something about his government of the police department. Again, serving Mayor Andy Burke, and I wanted to, in case you haven't considered this, think about 2 Tuesdays ago, and that was when there was a kind of an uproar before the city council. It was replicated more mildly yesterday before the county commission, and there were about 24 advocates and members of, you might say, inhabitants of the county. All of them, I think, were black. There were a few Caucasian people who were sympathetic. There's the sign that they had yesterday. If you look at our Facebook feed, I have a brief clip showing them. They stood with one hand over one eye, and that is what Interstate Tax has on his video. I'm sorry, his music CD. He's standing there looking at you, but he has his hand over one eye. It's a very unusual picture, and that's what they were doing. And they also turned their backs on the county commission. 2 county commissioners demanded the firing of Blake Kilpatrick, the sheriff's deputy who beat Interstate Tax Tony. His name is Charles Tony, 24, 25 years old, father of 4 very young children. And apparently, though you find a lot of F-bombs and N-words in his music, he is a man of charitable disposition and considered highly by others for things he is known to have done by way of service and grace in parts of his world in Chattanooga, and he lives in East Ridge. The objection, so the county commission heard yesterday the similar objections that the city council heard the week before. That was last Tuesday, not Tuesday 2 days ago, but Tuesday 9 days ago. And in the city council meeting, there was an uproar. Now here is where I want you to consider David Roddy's very good instructions to his chiefs and to the officers who were assigned that night on that rotating schedule to be in the city council chamber. It could have easily gone badly, but what happened is, in a nutshell, is this: there were shouts as a statement by Erskine Oglesby, a councilman, kind of came to an end, and suddenly that was a sign: we are angry. We are angry that we have continuing abuse of black people. We have continuing police violence against citizens who do not deserve that sort of executive punishment, right? Executive summary punishment of beatings and draggings and the like, and rapings. That also was brought up. And the chief did something very, very favorable in the whole matter, and very much in the direction of reform. That is to say, de-escalation and respect for the citizens. Respect for the citizens. I'll be right back. Hang on. Some messages.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Suspect arrested in a deadly Decatur stabbing. The TBI says 41-year-old Randall Burnett is accused of stabbing Michael Joyner to death. Reports say the two men were acquainted before the fatal knife attack. Joyner was found dead by deputies with a single puncture wound. Burnett thrown into the Meigs County Jail on $5 million bond. A Bradley County woman who was convicted in a high-profile deadly DUI crash arrested for DUI again. The BCSO says Tiffany Asaza was charged with DUI and put in jail. She was convicted in a 2010 death of Dustin Ledford, who was killed when she crashed into him while under the influence of both alcohol and meth. And Erlanger put out a warning about phony phone calls. Erlanger officials say someone is calling from a number that appears to be from inside the hospital asking for personal information. The FCC warns you shouldn't respond to questions from a suspicious number. Val St. John for Nuga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Oh, can happen to anyone. Flat tire, overheated engine, or just a clackety-clack, and now you're on the side of the road. No worries, because Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is there 24 hours a day for you. That's right, 24-hour-a-day emergency roadside assistance. And you don't have to accept who your insurance company or your road assistance provider sends you. At Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, we want you off the road as safely and soon as possible. So they'll be there in a jiffy. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery with 24-hour emergency roadside service. Call 800-407-2371. That's 800-407-2371. Online, yatesrecord.com. That's yatesrecord.com. On Facebook at Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, LLC. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery. We don't want your arms and legs, just your toes. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is a Nuga Radio 92.7 First Responder Friday sponsor. To our first responders, Doug Yates Towing and Recovery says thank you.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7.
Jeff Styles.
25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. Sean Hannity, CBS Radio News. David Tulis, streaming strong at NugaRadio.com. NASCAR, live on YouTube and Facebook.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
I'm always watching the Travel Channel. There was this one episode shot in the Mediterranean one night. It caught my eye. And the food, wow, definitely wanted to try some of that. Luckily, I didn't need to go halfway around the world. I found Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods right here in East Ridge. East Ridge. They were telling me how the menu's made fresh daily. It's authentic and it's so delicious. Your next culinary trip, not halfway around the world. It's right here, waiting for you at home.
Visit Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods, 3992 Ringgold Road.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way, the Thompson Pet way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Hey folks, Jeff Styles here, talk radio host and infamous technophobe. But I got to tell you, this Facebook Live that Nuga Radio does, it makes sense to me. It really does. Now, we're at 92.7 on the FM dial, but really where you need to go is NugaRadio.com and just do the streaming audio, 8 to 10 a.m. The first hour is mostly just me just throwing commentary in on top of the news. The second hour is me frustrating and irritating you beyond all belief. NugaRadio.com. Don't miss it. Every weekday.
Expect some high clouds but dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off 575, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Sorrentine 12. She's the meteorologist, Patrick 4.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
I want to hear your good stories about police. I do. And the reason is this. If we hear about officers being heroic, self-denying, and not pressing their authority, whether it's real or pretended, that will encourage the other officers to think, wow, this man is being held up to praise for changing a woman's tire, for not using his weapon when he could have defensively under statute killed somebody and he didn't. Those are the kinds of stories I want to hear. And when I had a quick chat with David Roddy when I graduated from the Citizens Police Academy, I said, Chief Roddy, I'm not your enemy. I said that because everybody thinks that I am, because I'm such a critic of policing and Mayor Burke's operation of that department. I'm not. And I said, let me hear the good things that your officers are doing. Let me hear about the grace extended. Let me hear about the help offered. And let me hear about the use of discretion in favor of the individual, the help to someone who is having a mental episode who could be seen as being under a statute. Let's say the disorderly conduct statute. Well, that could be applied. It's a malicious and vague statute on at least 2 of its 5 provisions. They're unconstitutionally vague. But that aside, someone who could have been charged under disorderly conduct, theoretically, and as it's routinely done, but who isn't, right? Who isn't because, why? Well, why did he not charge that person? And what did that officer do to help that person? I want to hear these stories. And, I want you, my listener, to chime in on this point. Let's praise the good. And in doing that, in public, right? You, my listener, telling somebody else who might be listening out there about your situation, about your experience, that will all be for the good. And that is because what we do here in the press is to praise the righteous and condemn the wicked. That's the general purpose of the press. It is a ministry. It is, in fact, in the Christian theory of Reformation, it is a prophetic function. The press is a prophetic function. It has a high duty and a high calling. And I take my job very seriously. So if there's something wrong, well, we're going to condemn it and we're going to demand a change. If there's something right, we have to be the ones to favor it. Now, I have other things to get to, David, but I wanted don't let me drop this point. And if you want to call me on this point of a good deed by an officer, especially when he could have used his discretion against you, that I want to hear about, and that I want to hold up as an example. Just by the way, there are a couple of stories in the Times Free Press today, which also serves this prophetic function, and that is a story by Zach Peterson about Blake Kilpatrick and his past that you do want to read, and also a story that I couldn't run down the principles today by Tyler Jett, also a reporter with the paper. The headline is "Judge Rules Against Lookout Mountain in Airbnb Case." I talked with Scott Saltow, who has a city court ruling in Lookout Mountain, Tennessee, in his favor. He had rented under Airbnb and was cited, and he fought back. He has an attorney The attorney is named Buddy Presley, but Buddy Presley's office, when I called twice today, the lady at the phone said, well, he's not interested in talking right now. And Scott Salthouse said the same thing. He doesn't want to raise a stink about it and bring a high profile about that. I'm a little puzzled by that because I know Scott Salthouse is a devout Christian. And if you're a devout Christian, you want to elevate and have noise about good things, right? Good news like that, because I'd say there is no constitutional authority for any town government to restrict the private use of a private home by a private party serving private parties, though it may be through a corporation called Airbnb or other like platform. That is not a business. But to get back to the point about Chief Roddy, and here's what he did. Now this is 2 Tuesdays ago when there was an uproar at the city council meeting. And to read what happened, make sure you go to Nuganomics.com or Medium.com. Look for David Tulis. That's Tulis. I suggest you follow me. That doesn't mean, when you follow somebody, that doesn't mean you're a sheep being led about by the shepherd. That's not exactly the idea, that you don't have a mind or a will of your own. And here you follow David Tulis to know what to think. Well, it's not that pretentious and not that important, but it simply means that technically when I publish something, you get it. Okay. That's all that it means to follow David Tulis. So I'd like you to think about being, you might say, a subscriber to Nuganomics.com, my press platform, or someone who follows me on Medium. Just type my name in and follow. And whenever I post something on Medium, which is every post will be there, sometimes exclusively on Medium, or you can read it at Nuganomics.com. David Roddy, 2 Tuesdays ago, when there was an uproar, had his officers do the right thing. Let me just tell you quickly what they did. Rather than be defensive, rather than be on their guard, rather than get all stiff and their hands ready to draw the taser out, right, ready to spray the gas at the black woman holding the sign, ready to pull out the weapon to defend city council members, rather than being courageous and heroic, which they did at Ferguson, right? The officers of the Chattanooga Police Department just lulled about. Now, they had a high commander there, Dana Vaughn, who's a lifetime officer. She's married to a police officer as well. So there was some high authority there that night. And David Roddy, the chief, knew that there would be kind of an uproar. He knew there would be, because it was following the Tony beating story, right? And the city's complicity in that, as the protesters said. And David Roddy wanted to make sure that the protest, even if it interrupted the meeting, was not a big deal. He wanted it to be understood that he was not alarmed by that. He was not concerned that there would be any violence, that he was not thinking that his officers had their lives endangered, that he was thinking, well, wow, there's going to be a protest at city council tonight, and it's possible one of my officers might not make it home tonight. He didn't have that thought at all. He didn't. Or if he did, he didn't want anybody to know. And so he said, look, Dana, just we're there just to keep the peace. We don't have to, we're not making a presence. We're not showing our force. We're not doing anything like that. We don't have to draw our guns. We don't have to be there with our M4 carbines, the 253 cal military carbines that we have. We don't have to bring the Barrett 50 and mount it in the back for protection, for armor protection. We don't have, that's not what we're about. We're not doing that. We're not going to escalate. We're going to maintain a quiet and tranquil presence. And that's what happened. The protesters were shouting, some were screaming, there were chants. No justice, no peace, for example, was one. And people raised their voice. They actually raised their voice. I mean, Americans are so quiet. They're so, I think black people in Chattanooga are so passive. They're so careless about things like this. They're not showing their anger. They're so passive. I can't figure out why they're so agreeable to these things, to these train of abuses coming from the police department. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. But David Roddy had his officers lolling about. I have a picture in my Facebook video of that meeting of one officer kind of leaning against the podium where members of the public speak. He just had his elbow on it, just kind of waiting around. And that was perfect. That was a perfect picture. In my mind, David Roddy, the chief, I don't know that he planned that, but that was a very good thing. The people were not a danger to their elected representatives. and they were no danger to the officers, and everybody knew it. And that is exactly how you have peace. That's where peace comes from. And David Roddy should be heartily commended for this detail. It was just a detail, and I mentioned it at the time, but it came back to me to think about it and just to tell you about it, okay? Because I want to praise this whole spirit, because it is a reform spirit, and David Roddy was named by Mayor Burke for that purpose, at least partly. And so, as I asked the chief, I said, please let me hear about these officers. Now, you, my listener, called 800-8949. That's 800-8949. Or if you live in Red Bank, to have the numbers spelled out one by one, 800-8949, 800-8949. You report, and the world decides. So why don't you report to me about the good encounters you've had anywhere, really, even with Sheriff's Deputy here in Hamilton County, or beyond, if you want. That's quite all right. We are Nuga-centric, but, we reach way down into Georgia, and there are some, as they say, bad apples down there, but there's some very good round apples, like the one I have in my lunch pail. I always make my own lunch, by the way, and I have it in right here in the studio, and I try not to eat beforehand. But I did yesterday eat an apple before my show. But when I eat more than I should before going on the air, I can't think straight. And yesterday's show, if you tuned into any part of that, you could see how scattered I was. And that was because the blood was in the wrong place. The blood, whenever I ate a hamburger, sometimes I was so starving that I missed breakfast, and I have a quick hamburger before I come into the studio. That's a disaster. And yesterday I had an apple, and I think I had one of my lunch sandwiches before coming on the air, because I missed breakfast on Wednesday. And so my thoughts were bad. But we have bad apples in the police department, and I have a good apple in my lunch pail. And that's what I want to say. In de-escalation, tell me about what's happening to you. What has happened to you, my listener? I do want to know. And you can call really anytime. I'm always on the air at 1 o'clock, and the name is David Tulis. Make sure you go to my GoFundMe page, GoFundMe David Tulis Show, to raise a little money for the rent here. Right? I'm not paying my way on this show, and I'm sorry to the management that I have failed them, and I would like to put a few bucks into management's pocket. So in this direction, the chief Roddy insisted upon, and he had Dana Vaughn there to ensure that there was no bristling hairs on any officer. They all stood around as tranquil as a cup of tea, emitting its steam there with the little sugar cubes on the side. Calm, quiet, nothing, no big deal. People are mad. That's fine. They're airing their grievances, and they're all civilized. Everybody in that group, the cops thought, is a civilized and peaceful human being. And the cops were right. The officers were absolutely right, though they seemed armed to the teeth. They really did. And I've got a problem with that. But their attitude was not with the dander up, the bristles up, the porcupine quills extended. No. Quiet, relaxing. And and you have to credit Chief David Roddy with that. So look, things are improving in Chattanooga. This is a small picture. It is just a picture. There are extensive changes that need to happen so that policing will not be utterly abolished from our land. Okay, if we want to save policing, and some people do, we have to have reform in this direction. That was a perfect example of the kind of reform that will save policing as an institution in Chattanooga, as a department. But think, if you did abolish policing, and we have discussed that, you would save probably more than half of the $73 million budget that the city council allocates to this executive branch agency. And we heard yesterday from one of the city council people about. Hold on, my time. I've got to do something here, and I'm running out of time. Hang on a second. Yeah, changing the subject. Yeah, a city council member said that indeed the mayor.
And I wanted to see about getting an interview about your board and what it does, and the number of judges it's removed, or does it deal with lawyers as well, or just judges?
No, we just deal with judges, and we don't have the power to remove judges. We don't remove judges at all. Only the General Assembly can do that.
So you have complaints about judges, and then you just try to resolve these complaints? Is that what the board does?
Well, yeah, we can sanction judges if there's ethical misconduct. I'll tell you, the best place to get the information on the board is to go to our webpage.
Yes, I have been there. I've been looking through some of your monthly reports and quarterly reports, but it doesn't really say, doesn't have any details about, what the...
This is a lawyer with the Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct, and I don't have his name in front of me, but this is a body which costs millions of dollars and pretends, I'll say it pretends to regulate
judge is alleged to have done and so on. And that's what I'd like to look at and hear about some of the cases that you've had.
Well, I mean, our records are confidential. I can't really, I can discuss in general types of violations we have. I can't tell you, anything specific about a specific judge or a specific area.
Well, is there a way to find out about particular judges, let's say in Chattanooga, what the complaints have been, what your board forwarded to the General Assembly, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I don't think we ever forwarded one to the General Assembly. Well, we have, but that's been a long time ago. But the only thing that's public is our public reprimands and where we have to file a formal charge. Those are all on the webpage. You'll see a list that says public. Yeah, you'll see a link that says public, public sanctions. And then there's also a listing, because once we file formal charges, which doesn't happen very often, but then those things are all public and they're on the webpage.
Okay, maybe I should look through there then. Well,
but unless it's a public discipline, we can't. I mean, there's no way we can. In other words, if you say how many complaints have you had against Judge so and so, I can't tell you that.
But if I say how many complaints have you had of judges, let's say in Hamilton County, you could say that, right? Just giving me a number.
No. No. Well, if I could track that down. I mean, we could. I mean, we have last year I prosecuted 422 complaints. I'm not going to go look at every complaint form and see what county they're from. We keep track of them by division, but not by.
This man is named Timothy DeSenza, and he is the disciplinary counsel for the Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct.
Well, how big is the division in Chattanooga area, Mr. DeSenza?
Well, there's three divisions in the state of Tennessee.
Okay.
The grand divisions, east, middle, and west. Those are the three political divisions in the state.
So would it be a matter of open records request to find out, let's say in the 4 or 5 county area around Chattanooga?
Hello?
I'm here. Hello?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have another call coming through. Well, go ahead.
All right. Well, let's say I wanted to find out, is open records appropriate venue to obtain details of, let's say, the 5 counties in the Chattanooga area? Just the number, a document that says the number.
I mean, I don't have any way to track that other than to open, I don't keep track of them by county. I mean, they'll all my complaints will have a county on them, but I'd have to look at every complaint to see what county they're from. Or what some of them are from a county. In fact, that isn't even appropriate because some, like, let's say it's Judge Smith, okay?
Okay.
Judge Smith, historically, judge may have.
I don't know why the file is not longer, but the interview goes on, and this is on your behalf, my listener. I asked this lawyer who's been for years blocking complaints about judges, according to John Gentry. The questions went on in this direction, and I'll just have to tell you in a nutshell. I said, well, what about if a group like the appellate court judges all agree by policy to disregard the Constitution and disregard the statute? They just have a policy in which they reject the statute and declare, and this is on the matter of the right to travel, and declare that there is no right to travel in Tennessee except for changing of domicile from one state to the other. That's their policy. I said, how can that be fought by someone who realizes that this is a kind of combination against the rights of the people? And he said, well, you need to understand something. What judges say is the law. So in other words, and he said this twice, what they say is the law, and there's no appeal from it. And I said, well, what about your Board of Judicial Conduct? Isn't this unethical to reject the people's rights? And what if it would be possible for someone to file a complaint against all these judges for rejecting the statute and tromping upon the rights of the people? He said, no, the only basis of a judicial complaint are ethical. which of course leads to the question is it unethical to do that? Is it unethical for the Court of Appeals to tromp on your rights, to enslave you, to operate what seems to be a kind of a thuggish operation to harass you, fine you, tax you, and penalize you, and keep the judicial industrial complex in every county busy? That's what this system does. It keeps them all busy, and it keeps the lawyers in work, the judges in work, the court personnel in their files and documents, and everybody's got a job, and we're all happy. That's where the conversation went, and I'm not sure why I can't report that too. But in a way, I'm glad I don't have that, because it's better just to hear it in summary. But that's what he said. What the judges say is the law. But guess who else says that? Phil Noblett, the city attorney, who's got on day 2 a potential hostage crisis, and that is my question has gone in. And it's on the 3rd day in, and I'm afraid because the door is locked and he can't get out. He's not in chains or anything yet, but he's not able to get out. That question is seemingly stuck right now. In the city attorney's office in the annex across the street from City Hall on East 11th Street. And I'm concerned. I've not gotten any phone calls about my question. He's not called me back. He is my emissary on your behalf. And maybe I'm going too far in saying this, but I'm thinking we may have a hostage crisis on our hands. We just have to see how well that question will be treated. Hopefully he's fed lunch and dinner, and has a warm place to stay at night. If he's locked in down there, there's got to be some kind of cot provided. And they better not tape his mouth, because what if he gets a cold and he can't breathe through his nose? Then he's got real problems. And it's kind of drafty in some of those lawyer offices down there. They're not very inviting. So I've got a question down there sent by email to Keith Reisman, and I'm afraid I'm not going to hear back. I'm concerned that we have a crisis on our hands. The question held hostage. I'm real concerned. David Tulis, we're going to talk about how lawyers have seized control of the state. There's one person, I think, who has a comprehensive grasp of this problem, and it's not me. Okay, it's not me. His name is John Gentry. And we're going to hear from him in just a minute. David Tulis, but first we've got the CBS News. And at 3 o'clock, hey, we've got Sean Hannity.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Suspect arrested in a deadly Decatur stabbing. The TBI says 41-year-old Randall Burnett is accused of stabbing Michael Joyner to death. Reports say the two men were acquainted before the fatal knife attack. Joyner was found dead by deputies with a single puncture wound. Burnett thrown into the Meigs County Jail on $5 million bond. A Bradley County woman who was convicted in a high-profile deadly DUI crash arrested for DUI again. The BCSO says Tiffany Asaza was charged with DUI and put in jail. She was convicted in a 2010 death of Dustin Ledford, who was killed when she crashed into him while under the influence of both alcohol and meth. And Erlanger put out a warning about phony phone calls. Erlanger officials say someone is calling from a number that appears to be from inside the hospital asking for personal information. The FCC warns you shouldn't respond to questions from a suspicious number. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News Now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
WPLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga.
Serving Chattanooga.
Broadcasting live from the center of the universe, the Tennessee Valley's most listened to news talk station.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by ZipRecruiter.
I'm Jim Shanovy. The nation appears back on the path toward at least a partial government shutdown tomorrow night.
The measure keeping key agencies funded through February 8th sailed through the Senate on a voice vote. But while huddling with a select number of House Republicans, President Trump told them he won't sign it. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
What the Senate sent over is just kicking the can down the road.
It isn't clear whether anything can be done now to avoid a partial shutdown tomorrow night. Republican leaders are expected to insert border wall funding into a measure that would keep agencies running, but Democrats who can block that in the Senate have called it a non-starter. Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, the White House.
The U.S. today unveiled indictments against 2 Chinese nationals in connection with a cyber spying campaign linked to China's government.
China stands accused of engaging in criminal activity that victimizes individuals and companies in the United States, violates our laws, and departs from international norms of responsible state behavior.
Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
Now, we want China to cease its illegal cyber activities and honor its commitment to the international community. But the evidence suggests that China may not intend to abide by its promises.
And the alleged hacking attacks targeted the Navy, NASA, and businesses in numerous sectors. Day 2 of the growing controversy surrounding the president's decision to pull U.S. forces out of Syria. CBS's Cammie McCormick.
The U.S.-backed Kurdish forces who have been battling ISIS in Syria put out a statement today saying an American withdrawal is premature. President Trump said in a video yesterday, "We've won," but the Kurds say the war is not over. An American pullout also leaves the Kurds vulnerable. Turkey sees them as terrorists and has been threatening more offensives against them, something the U.S. presence has largely prevented.
A New York judge has refused to dismiss sex assault charges against Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. The case will move forward. Weinstein's attorney, Ben Brofman.
We are obviously disappointed that the court did not dismiss the indictment, but Judge Burke has ruled, and we intend to continue to vigorously defend this case.
Lisa Borders is with Time's Up, a victims advocacy group.
We are very interested in ensuring that he is prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and we look forward to seeing you again on March 7th.
That's the date for the pretrial hearing. Another sell-off on Wall Street. The NASDAQ now officially in a bear market. CBS's Jill Schlesinger.
It touched the level that's 20% below its recent 52-week high.
Right now, the Dow down 520 points. This is CBS News.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified candidates for businesses of all sizes. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free.
I'm Tiffany Haddish, and I'm a Groupon super user. There's still time to save on thousands of holiday experiences with Groupon. Come on, you've already got the free Groupon app, so get smart with your money and act now. Need a great instant gift? Act now and save big on experiences like a spa package for mom, concert tickets for dad, and go-kart racing for the kids. Millions of people are doing it. Why aren't you? Save more so you can gift more. Act now. Groupon.
It's Macy's Holiday Countdown Sale. Hurry in to get those last few gifts or buy online and pick up free in store. Plus, save an extra 20 or 15% with your Macy's Card or Pass. Coats and sweaters for him and her, 25 to 50% off. Fine jewelry, 35 to 55% off. FAO Schwartz toys, 50% off. Plus, fragrance gift sets for everyone on your list. Hurry in now. Savings off sale prices, exclusions apply. Macy's Star Rewards now offers perks everyone can love no matter how they pay. Sign up for free in store or at Macys.com/Star Rewards.
The Trump administration wants to accomplish something that this year's Farm Bill did not. Peter King reports.
The Agriculture Department wants to restrict states from waiving employment requirements for some adults to keep getting food stamps. These are states with high unemployment or a lack of sufficient jobs. The proposal would require most adults 18 to 59 to work 20 hours a week to keep those benefits. Right now, it's 18 to 49 for people with no children. Those with kids older than 6 would have to work or be in job training programs. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, serves roughly 40 million Americans. Peter King, CBS News.
According to a new study, there's been a 300% increase in spam calls this year, and that's not just affected the U.S., but people all around the world. In fact, the United States is not even the most spammed country. Brazil is, followed by India. The U.S. was second last year, but has dropped to number 8 on this year's list. Jim Shenevy, CBS News.
Gold Bond salutes all you...
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
The Chattanooga Police Department confirmed a person was stabbed on Broad Street Wednesday afternoon. Officers were seen roping off a section of Lookout Mountain Suites parking lot. The cops have confirmed the victim was stabbed, but their injuries were not life-threatening. Erlanger Hospital putting out a warning about phony phone calls. They say somebody's calling with a number that appears to be from Erlanger, seeking out personal identifying information. The FCC warns you shouldn't respond to any questions from a suspicious number, especially if it's a yes or no question. Renovations to start next year for Camp Jordan Park in East Ridge. The City Council approved a $2.3 million enhancement and renovation plan with new buildings expected. Chattanooga Police Department Sergeant Peter Turk resigned from his post. He was accused of soliciting prostitution after a sting operation conducted by the TBI and the police department. Mr. Turk, the subject of both an internal affairs investigation and a criminal investigation. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Expect some high clouds, but dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off I-75, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Storm Gene Welsh, meteorologist Pastor 4.
Radio 92.7.
Have a car wreck in Tennessee? Why hire an Alabama billboard lawyer for your car wreck? You'll never, ever meet that guy. Warren and Griffin work here, live here. You get to know them. You have a car wreck? Call Warren and Griffin. 265-4878, 265-4878. And let me tell you, they've got a killer thing going on right now, the Hands-Free Tennessee petition to save lives and make our roads safer. Put down your cell phones and just drive.
If you could wish for anything this Christmas, what would you wish for? Well, a Saudi Daisy family wished that $25,000 in credit card debt would disappear. Well, guess who got an early Christmas present? Listen up, y'all. I'm Ben Phillips with Home Rate Mortgage. I'm in the business of saving people money. And if you want to save money around Christmas time, pick that cell phone up right now. 805-9100. You're not going to believe how much you can save. Home Rate Mortgage just cleaned an installation manager's chimney, ridding his family of $25,000 in credit cards right before Santa delivers presents. The best part is Santa's going to be a little more merrier this Christmas because this Saudi Daisy family is saving $1,100 per month, and you can do it too. So give us a call today. It's time to get on the sleigh. 805-9100 or homeratemortgage.com.
Turn a house into a home.
The station you hear everywhere.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
Yes, David Tulis, the smartest guy with a bow tie. The blogger with the biggest pen. The biggest pen, of course, is my radio tower, an amazing steel structure that my partner here at the radio station says is a work of art, but I just laugh at that. It's not a work of art at all. It's a utility structure, and that is my pen, 180 feet high, and from that pulse the signals for 92.7 FM and a powerful digital signal at 95.3 FM HD4. That's high definition channel 4, 95.3 FM HD4. You have to have a special radio to get that signal, and I think you should probably have a radio like that. You can buy one for $50, and it reaches out 65 miles of pulsating Jeff Styles, pulsating, wildly vibrating and overheating Sean Hannity. Of course, the strict and straight CBS News at the top of every hour with Russ and Val in the morning. Of course, you want to hear Russ and Val in the morning if you're here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County and points nearby, because they have everything that's immediate to us here in Southeast Tennessee, Chattanooga, Hamilton County area. Starting at 6 o'clock, have your coffee, eat your bagel en route, and tune in to Russ and Val, a terrific twaddle-free news, twaddle-free, diddly-squall-free newscast here. And my name is David Tulis. And I think that near is better than far, small is better than big, and simple than complex. And in the details, in the footnotes, a 5-point type, it Geneva font, the neutral font, right? It's neutral because it doesn't make, I believe that things written should not make war on other people. You should have neutral, blood-free lettering, and that would be without the serif, without the blade on it. And that would be the neutral font, Swiss, Helvetica, or Geneva. You've got this mantra, part of my mantra for local economy in the free market, and it's personal is better than corporate. Personal, you got that. Personal is better than corporate, and physical is better than abstract. I've got on the phone probably someone I would consider the leading reformer in Tennessee. Reform in the sense that we have written into our laws in Tennessee many wicked things that favor the cartel, favor an insider group. And those people are the attorneys of our state. They are members of the Bar Association of Chattanooga, well, the Hamilton County Bar, the Tennessee Bar, and they all work together with the judges to obfuscate and hide from you your liberties and your rights, making us poorer. You see, the reason I'm concerned about some of these abuses is that when people are abused by the cops, abused by the judges, and abused by attorneys who are looking out for the state and not for liberty and justice, you have a real effect, a sociological effect, an economic effect. It's decapitalizing. It takes capital away from the people, person by person, group by group, town by town. And we don't have a free market. We have much less of a free market than we would deserve if God were blessing us, right? If God were blessing us, we would have more free market and more prosperity, more opportunity for all. For the poorest man in driving the oldest car in the most ramshackle apartment complex, he would have $2,000 or $3,000 more to his name every year if we had a freer market and less intrusion into that marketplace, that is to say, into human society in Tennessee. If the law was not as aggressively pursued and as badly written as it is at the hands of the cartel. John Gentry is working on a remonstrance, and he's near a deadline to file it with the General Assembly. John, when will you be filing this remonstrance, and tell us about it?
Well, when I will be filing this is January 9th. The 111th congressional session of the General Assembly is seated on January 8th. So I'm going to file in with the new General Assembly on January 9th. And what this remonstrance, the last one that was done in the state of Tennessee was in the year 1850. So we're talking over 170 years ago. And Americans have been deceived by the legal profession and by the judiciary into thinking that we redress grievances against bad actor judges through the judiciary. And it doesn't work. You can't ask a judge to sanction another judge. They just won't do it. And so the process for that is through remonstrance. Our Tennessee Constitution, our Declaration of Rights, as stated in Article 1 of the Tennessee Constitution, I believe it is Section 23. It says that we have a right to instruct our representatives and those invested with the powers of government for redress of grievances by address of remonstrance. So this is a guaranteed right in our Constitution. This is how we address government policy that is wrong. It's how we address bad conduct.
Let me ask you a question.
Officials
John, let me ask you a question right quick. Why remonstrance? Why not just have the listener tell our legislator or our senator or representative, there's something wrong in the General Assembly. There's some bad laws in there. I'd like you to amend those laws or vote or write a bill to overturn them. Why can't we just do that? Does that not work anymore?
No, it does not work anymore. The legislature has been infiltrated by the bar and is largely controlled by the bar. Now, I don't say that lightly or without basis. The fact that the legislature is controlled by the bar is evidenced by the statutes that they enact that are beneficial to the bar. Now, I'll give you a good example. Tennessee Code Annotated 232-102. Attorneys have an automatic lien on your property. They have a statutory lien on your property if you hire them. Now, hairdressers are licensed by the state. They don't have a statutory lien. So, first of all, that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause because attorneys have a lien on your property. They have a higher level of protection for their work than hairdressers or accountants or anybody else. So there's an equal protection problem. But here's the easiest way to prove that these statutes are unconstitutional. So the legislature, who's lobbying Congress for that in the first place? That's obviously the bar, right? Trying to set it up so that attorneys have a statutory lien on your property. So very obviously that statute was lobbied by the bar. Now here's the big problem. Is the legislature, to a large extent, is comprised of members of the bar. They have a conflict of interest, don't you think, David?
Well, let me ask you this. I might think that, but is it in the law, John Gentry, that it's a conflict of interest? Does it say somewhere by rule or law in Tennessee that an attorney cannot or must recuse himself on any vote touching his own profession and his own licensure as a member of the judiciary.
Absolutely.
There is.
The rules of the House and the Senate are governed by Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. 90% of the states use Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. Section 502, who may be counted in determining a quorum. And remember, a quorum is it's the number of legislators who are necessary to enact something. Typically, 2/3 or 3/4 of the legislature is required. But a quorum is made up of qualified members. So you
qualified members, okay.
In order to have a vote. Now you ask, why should they disqualify them? Section 502, paragraph 2. Members disqualified on account of interest from voting cannot be counted for the purpose of making a quorum to act on that question. So when they enacted TCA 23-2102, providing a statutory lien, and they're an attorney, of course they're benefiting themselves, and of course they have a conflict of interest. So at the outset, statutes like that, and this is one of many, but statutes like that are void from the get-go because they were enacted by a non-quorum. They were enacted by a legislature composed of members who should have disqualified.
Well, let me ask you this: is there any record that legislators on these committees or in the body of the House or Senate said, "I cannot vote on this because I'm an attorney"? Is there any record of that, or do they not exist in the archive?
No. Of course, they're not going to disqualify. And the problem is the other legislators are so ignorant of how laws are supposed to be passed. They're so ignorant of their own rules that they're supposed to follow, like Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedural Manual, that they don't even think about, hey, these other guys should disqualify. These members of the bar clearly have an interest, and they should disqualify themselves. So the fact that this is happening evidences that the bar has taken control of our legislature, and they are enacting many unconstitutional statutes to their own benefit, to protect themselves from suit, to deprive the people of fair due process, to provide themselves with extra special privilege, like this statute that I just mentioned, 23-2102. They can't do that. They shouldn't even be voting on these statutes. So I'm going to address this through a remonstrance to the state and put that question to them.
All right, let's this is David Tulis, and we're talking with John. David Tulis here. We're talking with John Gentry of Goodlettsville, Tennessee. He works in Nashville. He's a CPA, and he works in the numbers in the service in his profession and calling of the medical industry. And he's preparing a remonstrance for delivery to the General Assembly in a few days. Well, in early January 9th, he says. And the question I want to ask you, John, is: all right, you mentioned the lien that's in the law, where lawyers, if you do business with a lawyer, he has by that transaction authority through the statute for a lien, whereas an accountant doesn't, a journalist doesn't, a PR person doesn't, neither does a doctor. What are some? And you mentioned other statutes. Give us a couple more that are typical of the kinds of things you're talking about, that are effectively guarantees of work, guarantees of protection that lawyers create in the statutes that they then have in their protection. What are a couple more, please?
Take a look at this one. This one appalls me. It's Tennessee Code Annotated 29-20-205. This statute says that you can't sue governmental entities for false arrest, malicious prosecution, invasion of privacy, and civil rights violations. That law is absolutely repugnant to both federal and state constitutions. Is it governmental entities that do those things? Absolutely not. It's bad actor judges and bad actor state officials that perpetrate those types of crimes. And the state is just adding an extra layer of protection by saying, if you try to sue the bad actor himself, they say, oh, he's immune, you can't sue him. So then you try to sue the agency, the court, the Court of Appeals, or whatever government agency it is, and they say, oh, no, You can't sue us either because we've enacted a statute to protect ourselves.
What's another one?
So by doing these things, they provide no means of the people to redress grievances. And that is absolutely repugnant to our form of government. The most paramount basic tenet of a Republican government is the ability to redress grievances against the government. And they take that away from us, and what that results in is despotism and tyranny of oppression, the same things that we declared as declared acts of tyranny in our Declaration of Independence, and why we declared independence from Great Britain.
Well, John Gentry, give my listener two more examples of this kind of statute that are clear protections that lawyers have given themselves in the law.
I'm going off the top of my head here. I might get these mixed up a little bit, but TCA 24-9-101, I think that one is the statute that provides a 1-year statute of limitations for malpractice lawsuits against attorneys. Now, again, that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause because other professions don't have that same statute of limitations. It's also in violation of the Emoluments Clause in both state and federal constitutions.
What is that? What does that mean? What is an emoluments clause?
No.
Explain.
An emolument is anything that creates an advantage for profit or gain. So, like, let's go back to that TCA 23-2-102, where attorneys have a automatic statutory lien on your property. That's an emolument. That is an advantage for profit and gain. And I have witnessed this in a courtroom, David, where a person demanded trial by jury in determining whether this attorney could put a lien on her property and take her money. And we're not talking small change here. I'm talking $100,000. And the judge in that case deprived that litigant of trial by jury, which our Constitution says we cannot be deprived of property, life, or liberty without trial by jury. But this judge conspired with an attorney, deprived that person of their rights, and awarded judgment based on this unconstitutional lien that the state has enacted. So statutes like this not only grant emolument special privilege, not only do they violate equal protection, but they encourage corruption, like the one where I witnessed, where this judge and this attorney conspired together to extort this person under color of law for $100,000. People, we got to wake up to this stuff, and we cannot allow this to continue to happen in the state of Tennessee, let alone in the United States of America.
Well, you're suggesting, John, that there's no redress apart from a remonstrance. Are you saying that we can't? There's no political answer. There's no top-down reform we can make, because that really seems to be something that has to shake up at the top of the government, which is to say the General Assembly. Will nothing work to end these abuses, to overturn these laws? Are you saying only remonstrance will work? And define the word remonstrance.
Okay, so let's start with the definition of remonstrance. This is in Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. It's a formal protest against the policy or conduct of the government or certain officials drawn up and presented by aggrieved citizens. In the 10th edition, it's a formal complaint or protest against governmental policy, actions, or officials. Now, what's important, and here's another example of how the legal profession is transforming the law to suit themselves. So Black's Law 5th edition says it's a formal protest presented by aggrieved citizens. They took out presented by aggrieved citizens in the 10th edition. And so our, Tennessee Constitution, Article 1, Section 23 says we have a right to redress of grievance by address of remonstrance. And the 5th edition says that we present the remonstrance ourselves. I should have an opportunity to stand in front of the General Assembly and present my petition of remonstrance to them. But they took that out of the 10th edition because they don't want people to know what a remonstrance is or how to use it.
Well, that's why I don't use any Black's Dictionary past the 6th edition, and then probably the earlier ones are better. All right, so you're proposing that you, a citizen representing my listener, representing me, speak to the General Assembly with this remonstrance, and you're saying you have legal authority because of you're following the procedures, and your remonstrance draft has, as I'm looking at, it's about almost 60 pages. You are saying we have weighty concerns and weighty grievances which can't be addressed by any other means. We have to avoid a revolution, we have to have this method.
Our founding fathers knew that this was going to happen because they had lived it. They went through this same garbage that state officials are doing now. They went through this when we declared independence from Great Britain. The same grievances. If you go look at the Declaration of Independence, at the bottom, it says, let these facts be known to a candid world. He subjects us to mock trials. He sends out swarms of officers to eat out our substance. He voids our most precious laws. And that's what they've done. They have usurped our most precious right of due process. That right of due process, David, we have been stripped of that right. And it confounds me about how many people in this country stand up for the Second Amendment, First Amendment, right of free speech, right to bear arms. But this country is completely ignorant that we no longer have any means to enforce a right of fair due process against a corrupt judiciary. None whatsoever. The last thing, I've researched this hard, and the last chance that we're going to get this done is through remonstrance. With this one, I'm going in and I'm hoping, without too much public trust being disturbed. I want to preserve the public trust. I don't want to disparage my government. I love my country. I love many aspects of our government. I don't want this thing to get out there too crazy. But if they do not want to address my remonstrance coming in there, then I'm going to start putting up billboards around the state of Tennessee if I have to. And I will gather the people to my side and educate them, and we will go in force. When I say in force, I mean in large number to the legislature and demand reform. This right is guaranteed to us. The founders of Tennessee were so strong about our Bill of Rights. They even put into Article 11 miscellaneous provisions. They said the Declaration of Rights just declared to be part of the Constitution of the state and shall never be violated.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with John Gentry, a reformer who is going to be presenting on January 9th a remonstrance to the General Assembly. David Tulis, Nuga Radio. I've got some important messages. Stand by.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Suspect arrested in a deadly Decatur shooting. The TBI says 41-year-old Randall Burnett is accused of stabbing Michael Joyner to death. Reports say the two men were acquainted before the fatal knife attack. Joyner was found dead by deputies with a single puncture wound. Burnett thrown into the Meigs County Jail on $5 million bond. A Bradley County woman who was convicted in a high-profile deadly DUI crash arrested for DUI again. The BCSO says Tiffany Estaza was charged with DUI and put in jail. She was convicted in a 2010 death of Dustin Ledford, who was killed when she crashed into him while under the influence of both alcohol and meth. And Erlanger put out a warning about phony phone calls. Erlanger officials say someone is calling from a number that appears to be from inside the hospital asking for personal information. The FCC warns you shouldn't respond to questions from a suspicious number. Val St. John for Nuga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Oh, can happen to anyone. Flat tire, overheated engine, or just a clackety-clack and now you're on the side of the road. No worries, because Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is there 24 hours a day for you. That's right, 24-hour-a-day emergency roadside assistance. And you don't have to accept who your insurance company or your road assistance provider sends you. At Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, we want you off the road as safely and soon as possible. So they'll be there in a jiffy. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery with 24-hour emergency roadside service. Call 800-407-2371. That's 800-407-2371. Online, yatesrecord.com. That's yateswrecker.com. On Facebook at Doug Yates Towing and Recovery LLC. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery. We don't want your arms and legs, just your toes. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is a Nuga Radio 92.7 First Responder Friday sponsor. To our first responders, Doug Yates Towing and Recovery says thank you.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7.
Jeff Styles.
25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. Sean Hannity, CBS Radio News. David Tulis, streaming strong at NugaRadio.com. NASCAR, live on YouTube and Facebook.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
I'm always watching the Travel Channel. There was this one episode shot in the Mediterranean one night. It caught my eye. And the food, wow, definitely wanted to try some of that. Luckily, I didn't need to go halfway around the world. I found Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods right here in East Ridge. East Ridge. They were telling me how the menu's made fresh daily. It's authentic and so delicious. Your next culinary trip, not halfway around the world. It's right here waiting for you at home.
Visit Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods, 3992 Ringgold Road.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Hey folks, Jeff Styles here, talk radio host and infamous technophobe. But I got to tell you, this Facebook Live that Nuga Radio does, it makes sense to me. It really does. Now, we're at 92.7 on the FM dial, but really where you need to go is NugaRadio.com and just do the streaming audio, 8 to 10 a.m. The first hour is mostly just me just throwing commentary in on top of the news. The second hour is me frustrating and irritating you beyond all belief. NugaRadio.com. Don't miss it. Every weekday.
Nuga Radio. Nuga Radio. Chattanooga weather.
Expect some high clouds but dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off 575, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Storm Gene Welsh, she's meteorologist Patrick Moore.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
There is a victory for the free market in housing on Lookout Mountain. Scott Saltown, who's an investment advisor, engaged an attorney, and together they got a municipal judge with a wonderful name of Flossie Wheel to overturn the claims of the ordinance against Scott and his private use of his private property to private people through the amazing intergalactic network Airbnb, and there are others like it, providing service, bringing capital into towns, hamlets, and cities such as Chattanooga. Though Chattanooga, the gig city, has barred the use of the internet by its ordinance. The city council, in its great wisdom, with the dissent of Demetrius Coonrod, the only dissenter, passed the ordinance to prohibit the use of the internet in Chattanooga on this point. We're talking with John Gentry, who is a reformer, and proposes what I would like to suggest is the only vehicle for redress that we have. My own project, which of course you may have heard about, called administrative notice, is a training wheel on his larger project, if anything, if that. So there are 2.5 reforms possible He has the main one in mind is the half, trailing behind, sparing black people, African Americans, poor, Hispanics, and the like from police harassment and abuse, and giving them a cause of action in court to defend themselves in traffic court and to sue the cop who operates in bad faith against his rights. Now, John, tell my listener how it is, by your analysis of the statutes, that the bar, that lawyers have created emoluments and inurements to their benefit. They have created laws that favor their class, that favor their tribe. What's one law that's an example of that, and what do you propose to do about it?
So, well, Tennessee enacted Tennessee Code Annotated 23-2-102 that attorneys have a statutory lien on your property. That is it's a violation of equal protection. It's an emolument that's granted to them. They've given themselves special privilege. TCA 292205, you can't sue for false arrest, malicious prosecution, invasion of privacy, civil rights violations. And these statutes are being enacted to provide false immunities to the judiciary and the legal profession, to grant themselves special privilege, and to extort from the people. You know, our courts have become so corrupted that they no longer dispense justice and provide fair due process. Their singular purpose today is to enrich bad actors at great cost and great harm to the American people. Attorneys and judges in collusion routinely violate rights and perpetrate crimes under color of law. You know, the most disturbing part about this, David, is the great harm that is happening to the people in this state, across the country.
What about here in Chattanooga?
It causes suicide.
What about here in Chattanooga? How is my listener affected by these problems, John Gentry? Make it real to him. I want you to convince him that what you're doing is really valuable to him personally.
Well, as a clear example is what's happening with the state basically kidnapping and trafficking children from good parents. The state has forced licensed nurses, doctors, teachers, other professionals to report to the state any signs of abuse. And the state requires them to take training to identify possible signs of abuse. And without investigation, without due process, without warrant, workers from Child Protective Services can walk into a person's home and take their children from you.
Well, they have to have a warrant. John, they have to have a warrant.
No, they don't have to have a warrant. They do not have to have a warrant in the state of Tennessee, and that's what I'm talking about, these unconstitutional statutes. Tennessee enacted a statute that they don't have to have a warrant to come in your home anymore, and we should be very disturbed about that. And so the state takes these children for the purpose of getting Title IV incentives from the federal government, and every child they kidnap from good parents is worth about $100,000. Now, they don't go after, you know, privileged or middle-class people. They go out for the disadvantaged amongst us because they have no means to fight back. You go into a divorce court today, and the single purpose of those divorce courts are to drag out the litigation, extend it out as long as possible so that both spouses walk away bankrupt and destitute. That's the purpose of our divorce courts today. It's not fair division of property. It's to create conflict and drag it out for as long as they possibly can so that the lawyers can make as much money as they can out of these cases. Those are just two examples. And what happens when you get into proceedings where they've taken your children, or you're into a divorce case with vexatious litigation, you cannot imagine when a person is denied justice, when the courts make rulings based on ridiculous and unsupported allegations. You cannot imagine the emotional harm and trauma that causes to a person. And it causes people to engage in substance abuse. It causes people to commit suicide. It causes people to engage in vigilante justice. In Arizona, just a couple of months ago, some guy went off there and shot 8 people social workers going after the judge, guardian ad litem. In Chicago, there was a father of a litigant who went in there and had a shootout with a court officer and a judge. The media doesn't tell these stories. They're hidden from the public to keep us ignorant of the corruption that's going on in our courts. This is happening. It's happening across the country. So suicide, substance abuse, vigilante justice, this is not what this country was supposed to be. That's not what our founders intended to happen to us. And so we have a vehicle to address this problem, and it's through remonstrance, guaranteed in our Tennessee Constitution, that we have a right to redress of grievances and to apply to those in the government by address of remonstrance. And a remonstrance hasn't been filed in Tennessee since 1850. But a remonstrance is a formal protest against the policy or conduct of the government or certain officials drawn up and presented by aggrieved citizens. So on January 9th, I'm going to file a petition of remonstrance with the General Assembly in the state of Tennessee, and I'm demanding that certain judges be impeached for criminal conduct. I'm demanding that unconstitutional statutes that protect corruption and that enrich the legal profession be made void. And other redresses that I seek is I want cameras in every courtroom available live stream and recorded. If they have nothing to hide, then they should have no problem with that. And victims are easily protected. Point the camera at the judge. I don't care who's on the jury. I don't care who's on the witness stand. I care about that judge who's violating people's rights. I want the camera pointed at him. I want people to be advised of what their right of due process is. The Miranda opinion, when you're arrested, you're read your rights. People walk into a court of law and they do not understand that they have a right to a trial by jury, that they have a right to a fair and impartial court, that they have a right to present evidence and confront adverse witness testimony. There's another statute, Tennessee enacted, that says doctors, psychiatrists, dentists, licensed clinical social workers cannot be subpoenaed to trial, but you can depose them. And so this sets up economically disadvantaged people who do not know how to do a deposition testimony outside the courtroom, and it subjects them to a one-sided testimony. And the problem with that is now we have people wrongfully declared mentally unfit so they can steal their children. We have false allegations that are made in deposition testimony, and you have no way to confront that testimony in front of a judge or in front of a jury. So I want people advised of what their rights are. Those are just some of the redresses that I seek.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with John Gentry from Goodlettsville, who is preparing, as we speak, he's preparing a redress of grievances, a remonstrance, which the draft form that I have, he says, is not anywhere near complete. It's about 60 pages. I'm sure there's going to be more. I would judge this to be an extremely important matter for your benefit, my listeners' benefit. There are not ways of changing things from the top. There cannot be appeals. Letters to the editor don't matter. Letters to congressmen, letters to senators, to the new coming governor, Governor Haslam, who's on his way out. These cannot bring any changes. Lawsuits, appeals of convictions of criminal cases, they cannot bring these changes because there are policies. And we're looking at in my work here in Chattanooga, the abuse of the transportation statute upon the poor and African Americans and everybody else, that they cannot be changed by appeal. The courts will not hear a proper appeal. They reject your rights to travel and many other rights. They reject the exercise of all of your rights, because all of your rights depend on your communication, depend on your ability to go from point A to point B in the mode of the day, in the conveyance of the day, which of course is your car. The courts refuse to say that you have a right to do that. They refuse it, and so we have no appeal. There is no redress. And John Gentry is I want to suggest to you is providing a remarkable service, probably one of the most important things I've come across in 20 years in reading legal matters. and looking out for people like you, my listener, and your rights, asserting your rights, defending your rights, and having people understand their rights. There is probably nothing as important as what John is working on right now. John, tell my listener how he can get a hold of you or contact you or find out more about you. There is the only story that I've seen about you, John, in the press is at Nuganomics.com. That's Nuganomics.com. There's not been press coverage about your labors, John.
I have actually reached out to numerous news media outlets, including the Tennessean, and nobody will tell this story because just as the legal profession has taken control of our legislature, they have largely taken control of our media as well. I have done an interview with Megan Fox with PJ Media, and hopefully PJ Media is gonna break this story, and hopefully it'll get out there. That will be part of the key to retaking our republic back and returning this nation to the principles that it was founded on is getting media attention. But I believe I'm gonna hold them to the law. I think they're gonna have to at least consider this remonstrance.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with John Gentry. John, thanks so much for joining my listener me here on the David Tulis Show. I do thank you for your time and explaining what it is you're doing with your remonstrance. And my listener, again, can find out more about John Gentry by going to Nuganomics.com or just Google John Gentry. You'll find the story about him. The body of that story is his email letter to the General Assembly telling them, apprising them, giving them notice that the remonstrance is coming. John, thank you very much for joining me here.
Yeah, again, if I can get it in real quick, my website is wethepeoplev50.com, and you can register your email there.
We the People V50. That's We the People V, as in verses 50. Is that right? At gmail.com?
Yep.
All right. Again, that website is. Go ahead.
The number 5 and the number 0.
V50.com. All right. We the People V50 at. What's the rest of it?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks so much, John. This is David Tulis, and we're talking with John Gentry. And I wanted you to know that there's a development in Lookout Mountain, very favorable development from regarding the right to use your private property. This is especially important if you are a private person, not an investor, not a businessman, not a remote owner of a house that you put on the short-term vacation rental market. And we're dealing in the story with a municipal judge, a corporation judge named Flossie Wheel in the town, the city, the corporation of Lookout Mountain. And Tuesday, according to Tyler Jett in his story today in the Times Free Press, the judge finds in favor of Scott Saltow, who is a resident who engaged an attorney. The attorney's name is Buddy Presley, who refuses to come on to discuss the issues here. Though I called him twice this morning, his assistant said that he was not interested or is not interested in talking with you, my listener, about your rights in this matter. Chattanooga has abused thousands of families, just thousands of householders, property holders in the city by passing an ordinance more than a year now ago, which says you cannot use the internet, you cannot use Airbnb to have people stay in your house. It's important if you're a private owner because you have every right to do what you want with your house. That's private business, right? If you're not a corporation, you have rights that belong to you, that are given to you by God, that are immunities protected by the Constitution that inhere in you, right? They're inherent rights. They're unalienable. You can't separate yourself from that right. It always belongs to you, and that is, of course, because rights are, you might say, a spiritual thing, and they're given to you by God. They're rights and duties as well. Now, Scott Saltow had a basement apartment that he put up for Airbnb, and he refused to comply. And I offer Scott's kind of a retiring financial advisor, doesn't want to make a big deal out of what's happening, and did not want to come on the show to talk about it. Though I pressed him. I pressed him to do so. He kind of wanted it to settle down. Well, okay, maybe so. But what he's done is defy opinion, right? That's all ordinances are, or opinion. We need to have somebody in Chattanooga to defy this year-old system, which has not been properly defied. It has to be defied by someone who says, I'm standing on my rights. You can't legally have a district which keeps some people out of the Airbnb free market. You can't do that. And the reason that the city can't do that is because the ordinance that creates the so-called overlay district, the overlay map, is arbitrary and capricious in that it separates like parties, making legal distinctions between them. David Tulis, caller, you rang me at 800-8949. That's 800-8949 if you're in Red Bank. What is on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments about what he was saying, especially about judges.
Go ahead.
And first off, you know, when you go into court for a traffic violation or whatever, a judge will fine you, you know, $10, whatever, and plus cost, right?
That's about $100.
Did you ever? Well, did you ever stop to think what that court cost was?
Tell me.
I mean, the judge, whether anybody's in that courtroom or not, the judge and the clerk and all that, they get paid regardless, right? If you go, when he finds you plus costs, that cost goes directly to judges' retirement funds. So every time he slams that gavel down and says $25 plus cost, that $100 that is court cost now goes directly in his retirement fund.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I would say probably it goes to the general fund of the corporation. I know Eric.
No, it doesn't.
In Helton, Mr. Helton. Go ahead. Fill me in. A good friend in Marion County of my father's. They've been friends since high school. Got elected circuit court judge in Marion County. He wasn't a lawyer, but that's why they changed the law to make only lawyers can be judges. But my dad, they were riding around one day, and he said, "What is court cost? You know, what's that go to?" And the judge, he said, "That goes directly in my retirement fund." That's where it goes. Well, listen.
There's no place else but the judge's retirement funds.
Well, listen, thank you so much for calling. And you, my listener, hear that the caller is telling us that it goes directly into the retirement fund of the judge. I would say probably I would look to see if it went into the city general fund, and then maybe if that city has a separate retirement fund into that. But most city, county, and government officials in Tennessee are members of a sovereign wealth fund. In fact, one bigger than the state itself, one wealthier than the state itself, is called the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, which is a sovereign wealth fund where government money rolls around and tax-free generates new wealth for itself. It's dressed up as a retirement system. It's called TCRS, Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. Most dog catchers and prison staff, jail staff, county clerks, clerk staff, jail, they're all in it, and they all get their retirement funds from that fund. Again, it's a sovereign wealth fund. So to say that it goes directly into the retirement fund of a judge, I don't know that's the case. I would question that, but I do thank you, caller, for ringing that number. It's 800-894-9, 800-8949. And my name is David Tulis, and we're brought to you every day live by Nuganomics.com. Make sure you go to my GoFundMe page, support the David Tulis Show there. We're brought to you by, as I said, Nuganomics.com. I've got some great things coming out. Also on Medium, follow my work on Medium.com. Be a supporter of this show. This show needs support. I want to see signs of support. Do you like what I'm doing? Am I on the right track? Am I providing a service that you find useful? Please let me know. Here, David Tulis, and next we've got CBS News, and then the great, the one, the only, Sean Hannity, right here, Nuga Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Suspect arrested in a deadly Decatur stabbing. The TBI says 41-year-old Randall Burnett is accused of stabbing Michael Joyner to death. Reports say the two men were acquainted before the fatal knife attack. Joyner was found